HIPAA is one of the world's leading medical regulatory standards and is a must if you operate in the healthcare space, especially in the US. You're here because you want to learn more about the framework proactively, or because you have a client that's asked for it. So without further ado, let's dive in. In this video, we'll cover the following points. We've also added timestamps to each point so you can skip ahead directly to the part that you want to watch. Let's start off with what is HIPAA. HIPAA, or Healthcare Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, was created in 1995 to protect the data of patients in the American healthcare system, prohibiting businesses from disclosing protected information to anyone other than a patient without their consent. It does so by lawfully outlining the lawful use and disclosure of personal health information, also known as PHI. This involves having security measures around PHI, including physical, network, and process guardrails. Examples of PHI include medical records, social security numbers, names, phone numbers, addresses, financial information, or full facial photos. There's a total of 18 identifiers that the Department of Health and Human Services, the regulatory body behind HIPAA, outlines. So why is HIPAA important? I mean, look around. Data has never been more at risk than it is today. In 2022, there were nearly 600 breaches of PHI, affecting nearly 50 million individuals. And in 2023, by mid-February alone, over 40 breaches of PHI were declared on the HHS portal. In a report by Health IT Security, of the 10 biggest data breaches in 2022, almost all of them were a result of a third-party vendor that had access to PHI. This speaks to the importance of HIPAA and compliance at large, given the growing risk landscape around the healthcare industry. And as more and more institutions move their data to the cloud, the risk associated with patient data increases, especially in a post-COVID world. HIPAA is more important than ever, especially for organizations that want to protect customer data and build trust and avoid the enormous fines that are levied for HIPAA violations. With that in mind, let's talk about some of these fines. While the financial repercussions of HIPAA are feared and famed for their severity, the Office of Civil Rights, also known as the OCR, does prefer the carrot over the stick. As such, the OCR prefers to resolve HIPAA violations through non-punitive methods like voluntary compliance or offering technical guidance to assist covered entities with non-compliant areas. That being said, if the violation is severe or deliberate, financial repercussions are administered. HIPAA penalties are broken into 4 tiers. These tiers gauge data violations on magnitude, diligence, and response. And the largest ever HIPAA fine was $16 million against Anthem Inc. The company further paid out more than $100 million to settle lawsuits pertaining to cases in the court. So who must be HIPAA compliant? The HHS splits requirements for HIPAA compliance into 2 categories: covered entities and business associates. Covered entities include hospitals, health insurance providers, and healthcare clearinghouses. More broadly, covered entity is a term for any company that provides treatment, operations, and payment in healthcare, and consequently creates, collects, or transmits PHI electronically. Companies that work with covered entities and thereby have access to PHI are considered business associates. Specifically, companies that handle PHI and provide support in the form of treatment, operations, or more. Examples include cloud storage providers, third-party consultants, billing firms, IT providers, practice management companies, email hosting services, managed service providers, and EHS platforms. How to be HIPAA compliant? Getting HIPAA compliant may seem like a scary or arduous process at first, but it's simple once you know the basics. Let's split the compliance process into 2 halves: theory and practice. The theory is what's known as HIPAA rules, and the practice involves the 7 elements for a successful compliance program as outlined by the HHS. Let's start with the theory. There's 4 HIPAA rules you should know about: privacy, security, breach notification, and omnibus. The privacy rule is one of the main pillars of HIPAA, and as such, it aims to set guidelines around the use and disclosure of PHI without the patient's authorization. For example, while a doctor can talk to a nurse about a patient's health information without the latter's consent, the doctor can't do the same with an external third party. The privacy rule applies primarily to covered entities and requires them to both obtain and maintain written consent of the patient in case of a disclosure. Security. The security rule applies to both covered entities and business associates and requires these parties to put into place measures to protect the handling, transmission, and maintenance of electronic PHI, also known as ePHI. It split these measures into administrative, physical, and technical. Breach notification. Just as it's important to plan things don't go wrong, it's also important to plan for if things do go wrong, and that is the breach notification rule. As the name implies, this rule mandates that companies must disclose within 60 days of the event the breach, the nature of the breach, and what the company is doing to mitigate future risks to all concerned patients. Covered entities report to the HHS, and business associates report to the covered entities that they're working with. Some sites will tell you that it's only breaches affecting 500 customers or more, but that changed in 2013 with what's known as the Omnibus Rule. The Omnibus Rule isn't a standalone rule, it's more a consolidation of all the previous rules strengthened further to protect customer data. The Omnibus Rule in 2013 added changes relating to breach notifications, business associates, and a range of other issues. If you'd like to know more about these rules and the specifics under them, there's a link in the description that we've added for you. In order to help companies get and stay compliant, the HHS outlines 7 elements of an effective compliance program. 1. Implementing written policies, procedures, and standard of conduct. 2. Designating a compliance officer and a compliance committee. 3. Conducting effective training and education. 4. Developing effective lines of communication. 5. Conducting internal monitoring and auditing. 6. Enforcing standards through well-publicized disciplinary guidelines. 7. Responding promptly to detected offenses and undertaking corrective action. HIPAA seems incredibly challenging for a lot of companies because of 2 factors. 1. Its complicated compliance process that seems arduous and exhaustive for many. 2. The high penalties for failure, both monetary and otherwise. In the real world, this results in some companies simply choosing not to accept business from the healthcare industry because the cost of compliance is too high. But compliance doesn't have to be this hard, and your bottom line doesn't have to take that hit, all thanks to compliance automation. Companies using Sprinter to get HIPAA compliant don't pay the usual hundreds of thousands of dollars it takes, and neither do they spend months on end struggling to get compliant. With industry-leading automation and dedicated one-on-one sessions, you can get HIPAA compliant in as little as 6 to 8 weeks and for as little as $10,000. As always, there's a link in the description if you'd like to get started with Sprinter, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comments. We'll get back to you as soon as possible.